Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Liberty, watching the stars drift past the main viewing screen. The ship moved through space at a steady pace, following the same patrol route they had taken for the past 6 months. Nothing ever happened out here in the Outer Rim territories, which was exactly how Jake preferred it. His crew of 200 worked quietly at their stations, monitoring sensors and checking system reports, like they did every day. The Liberty looked like any other human exploration vessel from the outside. She stretched 400 meters from bow to stern, with clean white hull plating and the blue Earth flag painted on her sides. Her official mission was to map new star systems and look for planets suitable for human colonies. Jake had been doing this job for 8 years now, and he found it peaceful compared to his earlier days in the military dock communications. Officer Lisa Park sat at her station near the front of the bridge, wearing the standard blue uniform of the Earth Fleet. She had joined the crew 2 years ago, fresh from the academy, and Jake appreciated her careful attention to detail. Lisa monitored dozens of communication channels simultaneously, listening for distress calls from other human ships or signals from potential alien contacts. The bridge fell into its usual quiet rhythm as the day shift began their duties. Navigation. Officer Ben Clark plotted their course toward the next system on their survey list. Engineering Chief Carol Martinez ran diagnostics on the ship's faster-than-light drive. Science Officer Alex Thompson analyzed data from their previous planetary scans. Everything proceeded normally until Lisa suddenly straightened in her chair. "Captain," Lisa said, her voice carrying a note of concern, "I'm receiving an unknown transmission on emergency frequencies. The signal is incredibly strong, much more powerful than anything our equipment should be able to detect at this range." Jake moved to stand behind Lisa's station. "Can you clean up the signal? Determine the source?" Lisa's fingers danced across her control panel, adjusting filters and amplifying the incoming data. "Sir, this is coming from outside human space, at least 50 light years from our current position. The transmission power required to reach us from that distance would be enormous. I'm also detecting multiple similar signals being broadcast simultaneously across a wide area of space." "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The rest of the bridge crew turned their attention toward the large display at the front of the room. The screen flickered for several seconds before resolving into a clear image. An alien figure appeared before them, unlike anything humanity had encountered in their decades of space exploration. The being stood over 2 meters tall, with pale blue skin stretched tight over a skeletal frame. Its head was elongated, with large black eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. When it spoke, its voice carried the cold precision of absolute authority. "Primitive beings of the species known as humans," the alien began, its words perfectly translated into English by some advanced technology. "I am Admiral Kethfer of the Zephyrian Empire, commander of the 3rd Extermination Fleet. Your expansion into this sector of space has been noted and judged unacceptable." Jake felt his blood turn cold as the alien continued speaking. Around the bridge, his crew had stopped their work to stare at the screen in growing horror. "For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire has maintained order in this region of the galaxy," Admiral Kethfor declared. "We have eliminated 47 primitive species that dared to contaminate our sacred territories with their presence. Your kind represents the 48th such infestation to be cleansed from existence." The image on the screen changed, showing massive alien warships arranged in perfect formation. Each vessel was enormous, easily 10 times larger than the biggest human dreadnought. Their hulls gleamed with an oily black metal that seemed to bend light around it. Energy fields crackled along their surfaces, and weapon arrays bristled from every angle. Jake counted at least 100 ships in the immediate view, but the formation seemed to extend far beyond what the camera could capture. Behold the might of the Third Extermination Fleet, the alien admiral continued. 10,000 vessels, each one capable of reducing your primitive worlds to cosmic dust. Our technology surpasses your understanding by millennia. Our weapons can shatter moons and boil oceans. Our shields can withstand the fury of dying stars. Jake gripped the back of Lisa's chair as more images flashed across the screen. He saw planets reduced to glowing debris fields. He witnessed entire star systems being systematically destroyed by weapons that defied human understanding. The Zephyrian fleet moved through space like a force of nature, unstoppable and merciless. However, Admiral Kethver said, his black eyes seeming to stare directly at Jake through the screen, the Empire is not without mercy for truly inferior species. You will be given 72 of your planetary rotations to completely evacuate all human presence from this sector. Every colony, every outpost, every ship must retreat to your home system and never return. The alien paused, letting his words sink in before delivering the final ultimatum. Should even a single human vessel remain in our territory after this deadline, the Empire will demonstrate why 47 species before you chose extinction rather than face our full wrath. Your pathetic defensive fleets will be swept aside like cosmic debris. Your worlds will burn until nothing remains but radioactive ash. Your species will be erased from the galaxy so completely that even your memory will fade into darkness. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the Bridge of the Liberty in stunned silence. Jake stared at the blank screen for several long moments, his mind struggling to process what they had just witnessed. Around him, his crew sat frozen at their stations, their faces pale with shock and fear. "Lisa," Jake said quietly, "transmit everything we just received directly to Earth Command on emergency priority channels. Include all sensor data about the transmission source and strength." "Already on it, sir," Lisa replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake activated the ship's internal communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We have received a Priority 1 communication that affects the security of human space. All department heads report to the conference room in 10 minutes. All crew are to remain at their stations and await further orders." As his senior officers filed into the conference room, Jake looked out at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet of unimaginable power was moving toward human space with the intention of wiping out his entire species. For the first time in his 8 years of peaceful exploration, Captain Jake Morrison found himself wishing. The Liberty was something more than just a survey vessel. But deep in the ship's most secure storage bay, behind blast doors marked with warnings in 12 different languages, something waited in the darkness. Something that would make Admiral Kethver regret his ultimatum more than he could possibly imagine. The emergency meeting in Earth's Military Command Center began exactly 4 hours after Captain Morrison's transmission reached home. Fleet Admiral Karen Brooks sat at the head of a long table surrounded by the highest-ranking officers in human space. The room buzzed with quiet conversations as people filed in, but everyone fell silent when Admiral Brooks stood up. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying the weight of command earned through 30 years of service. "We are facing an extinction-level threat. Intelligence Officer Danny Clark will brief you on what we know about the Zephyrian Empire." Danny stepped forward and activated the room's holographic display system. Images of the alien fleet filled the air above the table, rotating slowly so everyone could see the massive warships from every angle. "Based on our analysis of Captain Morrison's data, we're looking at a military force that could easily destroy every human ship and colony in existence. These vessels are built with technology we don't fully understand, powered by energy sources that dwarf our most advanced reactors." The hologram shifted to show tactical analysis of individual Zephyrian ships, Each of their smallest vessels carries enough firepower to level a city. Their largest dreadnoughts could crack a planet's crust with a single shot. Our computer models suggest that our entire defensive fleet would last approximately 14 minutes against this force. General Robert Hayes from the Colonial Defense. Kors leaned forward in his chair. What about negotiations? Surely we can find some middle ground, some way to coexist with these aliens. Danny shook his head grimly. Sir, our xenological department has been studying similar threats for decades. The Zephyrians have a documented history of 47 species extinctions. They don't negotiate, they don't take prisoners, and they don't leave survivors. Every civilization they've encountered has been completely wiped out. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Brooks watched the faces around the table, seeing fear mixed with determination in equal measure. These were humanity's best military minds, but even they seemed overwhelmed by the scale of the threat. There is another option, Admiral Brooks said quietly. Every head in the room turned toward her. For the past 50 years, humanity has been preparing for exactly this scenario. She pressed a control on her command tablet, and the holographic display changed completely. Instead of alien warships, the air above the table now showed familiar human vessels. But something was different about them. The peaceful exploration ships and cargo haulers that everyone recognized were highlighted with new details, revealing hidden weapon systems and armor plating that shouldn't exist. Project Prometheus, Admiral Brooks announced, the most classified operation in human history. While the public saw us building exploration fleets and mining stations, we were actually constructing the most advanced weapons ever conceived. Commander Nick Taylor entered the room through a side door that most people didn't even know existed. He wore a uniform that none of the assembled officers had ever seen before, jet black with silver insignia that seemed to shift and move in the light. "Good evening," he said, his voice calm despite the magnitude of what he was about to reveal. "I command the Special Weapons Division, a branch of Earth's military that officially doesn't exist." The holographic display zoomed in on one of the modified ships. Every exploration vessel launched in the past 30 years carries weapons disguised as scientific equipment. Every mining station has been built around a quantum disruption device. Every peaceful colony has underground facilities that could level continents. Admiral Brooks nodded toward Commander Taylor. Show them the real inventory. The display exploded with information as thousands of hidden assets appeared across human space. Cargo ships revealed themselves to be mobile weapons platforms. Research stations showed massive power cores that could fuel reality-bending technology. Even small patrol vessels like the Liberty displayed weapon systems that made conventional dreadnoughts look like toys. "How is this possible?" asked Colonel Patricia Wilson from the Strategic Planning Department. "The cost alone would have bankrupted Earth 10 times over." Commander Taylor smiled for the first time since entering the room. "That's where our mining operations come in. We weren't just extracting metals and rare elements from asteroids. We were harvesting materials that exist in quantum superposition, substances that can be convinced to become whatever we need them to be." Lieutenant Amanda White stepped out from behind Commander Taylor, wearing the same mysterious black uniform. Her eyes held an intensity that made several officers shift uncomfortably in their chairs. "For 20 years, I've been working on humanity's most important project. We call it reality revision technology." The holographic display shifted again, showing complex equations and diagrams that hurt to look at directly. While other species built bigger guns and stronger shields, we learned to change the rules of the game itself. Our weapons don't destroy enemy ships by overwhelming their defenses. We convinced the universe that those ships were never supposed to exist in the first place. Dr. Steve Johnson materialized at the far end of the table, his arrival so sudden that several officers jumped in surprise. Unlike the military personnel, he wore a simple white lab coat, but the air around him seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. Quantum physics is really just the universe's programming language, he explained casually. Once you understand the syntax, you can rewrite anything. Admiral Brooks gestured toward the display, which now showed real-time positions of Zephyrian forces. Every human vessel in space is currently receiving new orders through quantum communication channels. Our exploration ships are shedding their disguises and revealing their true nature. Our mining stations are powering up weapons that can fold space-time like origami. The room erupted in shocked whispers as the magnitude of the deception became clear. For half a century, humanity had been lying to itself about its true capabilities. Every peaceful mission had been cover for military preparation on an unimaginable scale. The Zephyrians gave us 72 hours, Admiral Brooks continued. We've been ready for them for 50 years. They think they're facing a primitive species, with basic technology and no military experience. What they're actually facing is a civilization that has spent decades preparing to fight gods. Commander Taylor activated his personal communicator. All units, this is Prometheus Command. Execute Protocol 7. The galaxy is about to learn why humanity spent so long pretending to be harmless. Across human space, thousands of seemingly innocent vessels began their transformation. The universe was about to witness humanity's greatest magic trick, making 10,000 alien warships disappear forever. Admiral Kethver stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the stars bend around his massive fleet as they moved through hyperspace toward human territory. The ship stretched 30 kilometers from end to end, its black hull adorned with the preserved skulls of extinct civilizations. Each skull represented a species that had dared to challenge Zephyrian authority, and Kethver took pride in the collection that decorated his vessel. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion was a monument to imperial power. Towering columns of crystallized energy supported a ceiling that showed real-time images of conquered worlds. The deck was made from polished bone, taken from the last defenders of the Corvani homeworld. Everything about the space was designed to remind visitors that the Zephyrian Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. Fleet status report, Kethver commanded, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. His second-in-command, Sub-Admiral Vexara, approached the command throne with the efficient movements of a born warrior. All 10,000 vessels are maintaining perfect formation, my lord, Vexara reported. Our scouts have confirmed that human space contains exactly 47 inhabited systems. Their total military consists of less than 800 vessels, most of which appear to be lightly armed exploration ships. Kethver allowed himself a thin smile. The humans were even more pathetic than he had expected. What of their defensive preparations? Surely they must be mobilizing whatever forces they possess. Our long-range sensors detect no unusual military activity, Vexara replied. The humans appear to be conducting normal operations. Some of their cargo vessels are even continuing routine supply runs between colonies. Either they are incredibly brave or impossibly stupid. The alien admiral leaned back in his throne, made from the fused remains of 47 different species spacecraft. In his 3 centuries of service to the Empire, he had never encountered a civilization that remained calm when facing extinction. Usually, primitive species panicked when they received their ultimatum. They would scramble to build new weapons, evacuate their populations, or send desperate pleas for mercy across space. Perhaps they simply cannot comprehend the magnitude of their situation, Kethver mused. Display our fleet formation on the main viewer. Let me see the instrument of their destruction. The enormous screen at the front of the bridge lit up with a tactical display of the Zephyrian Armada. 10,000 warships moved in perfect synchronization, each one a masterpiece of destructive technology. The smallest vessels in the fleet carried weapons that could vaporize mountains. The largest dreadnoughts wielded power sources capable of igniting gas, giants like stars. Kethver studied the formation with satisfaction. The Empire had learned through 3 millennia of conquest that overwhelming force was the most efficient path to victory. Why risk a prolonged conflict when you could simply arrive with such superior numbers that resistance became meaningless? "My lord," Communications Officer Vextar announced from his station, "we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet. It appears to be directed personally to you." Kethver's interest was piqued. Perhaps the humans would provide him with some entertainment before their extinction. Put them through. Let us hear what these primitives have to say in their final moments. The main screen shifted to show a human female in a blue military uniform. She appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with short gray hair and calm eyes that showed no trace of fear. Behind her, Kethver could see what looked like a standard human command center, clean and functional, but laughably primitive compared to Zephyrian technology. "Admiral Kethver," the human said in a pleasant voice. "I am Fleet Admiral Karen Brooks of the Earth Defense Force. Thank you for contacting us with your ultimatum. We've given your demands careful consideration." Kethver leaned forward in his throne, expecting to hear desperate pleas for mercy or pathetic attempts at negotiation. Instead, Admiral Brooks smiled at him with the same expression she might use when greeting an old friend. "We want you to know that we appreciate you gathering your entire fleet in one convenient location," Brooks continued. "It will make what comes next much more efficient. You see, Admiral, humanity has been preparing for this exact moment for the past 50 years. Something about the human's tone made Kethver feel uneasy. He had heard the last words of 47 different species, and none of them had ever sounded so confident when facing certain death. Preparing for what, exactly? Do you seriously believe your primitive weapons pose any threat to the might of the Empire?" Admiral Brooks' smile widened. "Oh, Admiral, you've made the same mistake that everyone makes when they first encounter humanity. You've assumed that what you can see is all there is. You've judged us based on our public face, our peaceful exploration missions, our quiet little colonies scattered across space." The display behind Brooks suddenly changed, showing tactical information that made Kethver's blood freeze in his veins. The human ships that his scouts had dismissed as harmless cargo haulers were revealing weapon systems that shouldn't exist. Mining stations were powering up energy sources that registered as impossible on Zephyrian sensors. "For 50 years, Brooks continued, we've been the galaxy's best-kept secret. While you were busy conquering primitive civilizations with bigger guns and stronger shields, we were learning to rewrite the laws of physics themselves. We didn't build better weapons, Admiral. We built weapons that convinced the universe to fight on our side." Kethver rose from his throne, his composure cracking for the first time in centuries. "Impossible. Our scouts have monitored your species for decades. Your technology is centuries behind ours." "Your scouts saw exactly what we wanted them to see," Brooks replied. "Every human vessel in space is now receiving activation codes for systems that your science can't even detect. In approximately 30 seconds, you're going to discover why 47 extinct civilizations were just practice for us." The transmission ended, leaving Kethver staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically at their stations as impossible energy readings flooded their sensors. Something was happening to the fabric of space itself, and the Eternal Dominion's computers couldn't explain what they were detecting. "My lord," Vexara called out, his voice tight with fear, "our sensors are reporting massive quantum distortions throughout this entire sector. The human vessels are generating energy signatures that our instruments say shouldn't be possible." Kethver looked out at the stars one last time, finally understanding that he had made a terrible mistake. The humans hadn't been cowering in fear. during the past 72 hours. They had been activating weapons that would make the Empire's greatest fears seem like pleasant dreams. The destruction of the Zephyrian Empire began at exactly 14 hours 32 minutes and 7 seconds Earth Standard Time and lasted for precisely 3.7 seconds. What happened during those few moments would be studied by alien civilizations for thousands of years, though none would ever fully understand how humanity had managed to convince reality itself to change sides in a war. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching his instruments as space around the Zephyrian fleet began to behave in ways that violated every known law of physics. The ship's sensors, now revealed to be far more sophisticated than they had appeared, tracked quantum distortions spreading through the enemy formation like ripples in a pond. Quantum disruptors are online and synchronized, Lisa Park reported. From her communications station, her console now displayed readouts that would have seemed like magic to any observer who didn't understand humanity's true technological capabilities. All hidden assets across human space are reporting ready status. The Liberty itself had undergone a transformation that would have shocked anyone who had known her as a simple exploration vessel. Her hull plates had shifted to reveal weapon arrays that hummed with barely contained energy. Her cargo bays had opened to show devices that seemed to bend light around themselves. Even her navigation deflector had reconfigured into something that made nearby space shimmer like water. Dr. Steve Johnson's voice came through the ship's communication system from his hidden laboratory deep in the vessel's core, initiating reality. Revision sequence in 10 seconds. All crew members should avoid looking directly at the main viewer during the process. What you're about to see may cause permanent changes to your understanding of what's possible. Across the Zephyrian fleet, Admiral Kethvar watched his instruments with growing horror as impossible readings flooded his sensors. The human vessels, which moments before had registered as primitive and harmless, were now generating energy signatures that his computers insisted couldn't exist. The very fabric of space around his mighty armada was beginning to act like it had developed opinions about who deserved to win this conflict. "My lord," Sub-Admiral Vexara called out, his voice cracking with panic. "Our quantum sensors are detecting massive distortions in local spacetime. The humans appear to be manipulating fundamental forces in ways our science says are impossible." The first sign that something terrible was happening came when the Eternal Dominion's shields began to flicker. The energy barriers that could withstand the explosion of dying stars started to pulse erratically, as if they were suddenly unsure about what they were supposed to be protecting against. The ship's computers ran desperate diagnostic routines, but every test came back with the same impossible result. The shields were fine, but space itself was becoming confused about how shields were supposed to work. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Murphy, commanding the disguised weapons platform that had been masquerading as a cargo hauler, watched his primary display as the quantum disruptors reached full power. "Initiating Phase 1 of reality revision," he announced to his crew. "Remember, what you're about to witness is not destruction in any conventional sense. We're not blowing up the enemy fleet. We're helping the universe realize that the enemy fleet was never supposed to exist in the first place." The effect began slowly, almost gently. The massive Zephyrian dreadnoughts that had dominated space with their overwhelming presence started to look somehow less solid, as if they were photographs that someone was gradually fading. Their hulls didn't crack or explode. They simply began to question their own existence on a molecular level. Captain Julie Adams, stationed aboard what the Zephyrians had assumed was a harmless mining station, monitored the cascade effect as it spread through the enemy formation. "Target Group Alpha is experiencing aggressive existence failure," she reported to the hidden command network. "Their matter is becoming confused about whether it should be solid or empty space." The Zephyrian warriors aboard their mighty vessels found themselves facing an enemy they had no training to fight. Their plasma cannons fired backwards through time, hitting targets that existed only in theoretical mathematics. Their navigation systems concluded that the concept of forward was actually a type of cheese. Their life support systems became philosophically opposed to supporting life. Commander Nick Taylor, watching from his secret command center, saw 10,000 alien warships beginning to fold in on themselves like origami made of light. Phase 2 initiating automatically, he announced. The enemy's own advanced technology is now working against them. The more sophisticated their systems are, the faster they're helping us convince reality that they don't belong here. Admiral Kethver stood on his command deck as his flagship began to forget what it was made of. The black hull that had been, forged from materials taken from conquered worlds, started to debate whether it should be metal or empty space, and ultimately decided on empty space. The crystallized energy columns that supported the bridge ceiling became uncertain about the difference between energy and imagination. "What are you doing to us?" Kethva screamed at the human transmission that still flickered on his main screen, though Admiral Brooks' image was now distorting as the ship's systems struggled with the concept of maintaining communications while ceasing to exist. Brooks' voice came through clearly despite the chaos. "We're doing exactly what we told you we would do, Admiral. We're demonstrating why 47 extinct civilizations were just practice for humanity. We're showing you what happens when a species spends 50 years preparing for bullies like you." Lieutenant Amanda White monitored the quantum cascade from her station aboard the Liberty, watching as the effect spread from ship to ship through the Zephyrian fleet. "The enemy's quantum computers are calculating themselves out of reality," she reported with scientific fascination. "Each vessel that achieves non-existence makes it easier for the next one to follow suit. It's like a chain reaction, but instead of explosions, we're getting aggressive peace." The 30-kilometer flagship of the Zephyrian fleet completed its transition from threatening warship to interesting theoretical physics problem in the final second of the 3.7-second engagement. Admiral Kethvar managed one last transmission. As his vessel debated whether it should be a spaceship or a particularly aggressive shade of blue. "What are you?" he whispered, his image flickering like a candle in the wind. Admiral Brooks looked directly at him through the quantum static. "We're humanity, Admiral. We're the species that looked at impossible odds and decided they were just another engineering problem. We're the people who spent 50 years pretending to be harmless while building weapons that gods would envy. And we've been waiting our entire existence for someone exactly like you to give us an excuse to use them." The Zephyrian Empire's invasion fleet completed its transformation from military threat to advanced physics lesson, leaving behind nothing but empty space and the satisfied hum of human technology that had just performed exactly as designed. The galaxy changed forever in the days following the Zephyrian fleet's sudden transition from existence to theoretical mathematics. News of the Empire's complete destruction spread through space faster than light itself, carried by quantum communication. Networks that had been silent for centuries, species that had hidden in the shadows for millennia, suddenly found themselves free to emerge into the light. Captain Jake Morrison led the first diplomatic mission into former Zephyrian territory aboard the Liberty, which had returned to its peaceful exploration appearance, but retained all of its hidden capabilities. The ship moved slowly through systems that had been controlled by the Empire for thousands of years, broadcasting messages of friendship in over 200 alien languages. The first species they encountered were the Corvani survivors, descendants of a civilization the Zephyrians had nearly wiped out 500 years earlier. These people had spent centuries hiding in asteroid fields and abandoned space stations, living in constant fear of discovery. When Morrison's team made contact, the Corvani delegation approached with the careful movements of people who had forgotten what safety felt like. "You are the humans," said Elder Vexani, speaking through a translation device that trembled in her six-fingered hands. The ones who made the Empire disappear. We felt the quantum distortions from 50 light years away. How did beings so young learn to unmake reality itself? Morrison smiled gently, understanding that these people needed reassurance more than technical explanations. We didn't unmake anything, Elder. We simply helped the universe remember that bullies don't get to win forever. Your people are safe now. The Empire is gone, and it's never coming back. Dr. Steve Johnson had established a temporary research station in the empty space where the Zephyrian fleet had ceased to exist. He studied the quantum echoes left behind by humanity's weapons, fascinated by the clean efficiency of the destruction. The area showed no radiation, no debris, no evidence that 10,000 warships had ever been there, except for some interesting mathematical equations floating in space. The universe seems quite pleased with our work, Johnson reported to Admiral Brooks during their daily briefing. Reality revision technology doesn't leave scars like conventional weapons do. Instead of creating destruction, we actually improved local space-time by removing an aggressive anomaly. It's like we performed cosmic surgery. Admiral Brooks had moved her command center to Luna Base, where she could coordinate humanity's new role in galactic affairs. The communications room buzzed with constant activity as messages poured in from civilizations across the galaxy. Some were grateful thanks from species the Empire had oppressed. Others were cautious inquiries from neutral powers, wondering about humanity's intentions. Admiral, Communications Officer Peter Walsh reported, "We're receiving another batch of applications to join the Galactic Cooperation Council. That brings the total to over 300 species requesting membership in just 2 weeks." Brooks nodded thoughtfully. The council had been her idea, a way for humanity to guide galactic civilization without becoming the next oppressive empire. Unlike the Zephyrians, humans offered partnership instead of domination, cooperation instead of conquest. Commander Nick Taylor supervised the careful distribution of selected human technologies to former Empire subjects. His teams worked with alien scientists to adapt quantum agriculture systems, terraforming devices, and medical equipment to different biological needs. The weapons technology remained strictly classified, shared with no one. The Corvani have successfully implemented our soil regeneration systems, Taylor reported during the weekly technology transfer meeting. Their homeworld should be fully habitable again within 5 years instead of the 50 they originally estimated. The Thylorians have requested help with their water purification problems, and the Zendik want to learn about our zero-point energy extractors. Lieutenant Amanda White had been promoted to head of the new Xenological Relations Department, tasked with understanding and communicating with the dozens of species that emerged from hiding each week. Her office walls were covered with charts showing different alien communication methods, social structures, and cultural taboos. The most interesting discovery, White explained to a gathering of Earth's top diplomats, is that most of these civilizations have incredible potential that was suppressed by the Empire. The Zephyrians kept everyone scared and focused on mere survival. Now that the fear is gone, we're seeing explosions of creativity, scientific advancement, and cultural development across the galaxy. Captain Morrison's exploration missions had expanded to include teams of xenologists, scientists, and cultural specialists. They visited system after system, helping newly free civilizations rebuild and offering humanity's friendship without demanding anything in return. The approach was revolutionary in a galaxy that had been ruled by fear for millennia. During a diplomatic dinner with representatives from 12 different species, Morrison listened as they shared stories of life under the Empire. The Zephyrians had been more than conquerors. They had been a force that suppressed hope itself. Every innovation, every artistic achievement, every dream of a better future had been crushed before it could grow. "Your species has given us something we had forgotten existed," said Ambassador Fel Ara, of the cosmic reef builders, her crystalline body chiming softly as she spoke. You have given us permission to think big again, to believe that impossible. Things might actually just be difficult things waiting for the right approach. But humanity's new role as Galactic Guardian came with responsibilities that Admiral Brooks took very seriously. Intelligence reports from the Outer Rim suggested that the Zephyrian Empire had not been the galaxy's only threat. Deep space monitoring. Stations detected strange signals from beyond the galactic edge, patterns that suggested something vast and ancient was taking notice of recent events. Colonel Danny Clark, now head of Galactic Threat Assessment, briefed the Security Council about the mysterious contacts. The signals are incredibly old, possibly millions of years older than anything we've encountered before. Whatever is sending them makes the Zephyrian Empire look like children playing with toys. The energy signatures suggest technology that could treat entire galaxies like construction materials. Admiral Brooks stood at the observation deck of Luna Base, looking out at Earth and the stars beyond. Her aide, Colonel Pete Walker, joined her as they watched humanity's ships departing for missions across the galaxy. Some carried diplomats and scientists to help rebuild civilizations. Others headed for the Galactic Rim to investigate the mysterious signals. Are you concerned about this new threat, Admiral? Walker asked quietly. Brooks smiled the same calm expression she had worn when facing the Zephyrian ultimatum. Colonel, we're humanity. We spent 50 years preparing for an enemy we'd never met, using technology we had to invent, and we won a war in under 4 seconds. We turned the galaxy's greatest military force into an interesting physics problem. Whatever is out there beyond the edge of known space had better hope it's bringing something more creative than overwhelming superiority and threats of annihilation. She paused, watching as another human vessel departed for the unknown regions of space. Besides, we've already proven something important to the universe. We've shown that no matter how powerful, how advanced, or how terrifying the next cosmic bully might be, there's always going to be one species willing to look at impossible odds and say the most dangerous words in any language. Which are? Walker asked. Admiral Brooks grinned as humanity's exploration fleets turned toward the stars. Hold my beer and watch this.